Hey everybody, Mark here at Twangers Turntable. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. All those out in the VC, vinyl community, for also those who aren't familiar with the term, thanks for tuning in. If you like what you're seeing, give a thumbs up and leave a comment. I really appreciate or enjoy when folks get involved, partake in the comments, share your experience with some of these albums. What I'm doing, this is the final episode in my Debuts in My Collection series that I began when I started my channel some time ago. This is going to be episode 16, and just as I was about to go on and start recording, I stopped in over at Patrick's YouTube channel there, the Vinyl Archivist, and they were doing a live stream of this. And those who know me know this is likely my favorite band of all time. And they're doing a live stream of the Power Slave album, Iron Maiden. So it was hard to pull away from that, but I told myself I set aside enough time to get this done. So without further ado, let's get her done. So yeah, the first I've got, I think, what have I got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 releases to cover here in this episode of Debuts in My Collection. And as I alluded to, this will be the final episode. This is episode 16. So I'm going to start off with probably one of my favorite bands out of the 70s, and really a super group. And that is I'm going to take these out of the shiny sleeves because it does make it easier to see them. But Bad Company and their debut from 1974, released in June of 74. Just a fantastic album. Yeah, as I alluded to, supergroup with Paul Rodgers and Simon Kirke. Simon Kirke on drums, Paul Rodgers on vocals, came from the band Free. And then you had Mick Ralph, Mont the Hopple, and Boz Burrell on bass from King Crimson, which is a band that fares pretty prominently on some of my Debuts in My Collection here today, in one way or another. But also another band that fares prominently is Led Zeppelin, indirectly, because Bad Company, at least here in North America, was signed to the Swan Song label, which was Led Zeppelin's label. Also, they were managed by Peter Grant, Zeppelin's manager, and it was recorded. The other thing it has in common with Zeppelin is it was recorded at Headley Grange over there in the UK, which is where Zeppelin 4 and what was the other one? Physical Graffiti were recorded. Zeppelin albums. So that's yeah, just a fantastic album. Of course, it's got Can't Get Enough, Rocksteady, Ready for Love, all just fantastic. The whole entire album, from the first track to the last, side A, side B. Don't Let Me Down, side B, starts off with Bad Company. Title track of the band in the album. The Way I Choose, Moving On, another great tune. See, they're all really good songs, really good tunes. But yeah, Paul Rodgers vocals, Mick Ralph's guitar, Boz Burrell bass, and Simon Kirke on drums. Fantastic. 1974. I was just a youngster then, and of course, if not for older siblings, and well, I'm sure at some juncture I would have heard it, but there was a lot of old classic rock and whatnot in my household, just due to my older siblings. Next up, I got one from 77, and these guys were not new to the music scene by any stretch of the imagination, and in fact, this was their album that was, I guess they decided to do as the band was on hiatus, and from what I understand, there was even some hope that Vincent Fournier would lay down the vocal tracks for this, but it never did occur. And of course, many of you now know who I'm speaking of, and that's the band Billion Dollar Babies, which essentially was the Alice Cooper group, with the exception of Alice Cooper on vocals. Those duties were performed by Michael Bruce, the guitar player and now vocalist. This was titled Battle Axe. I was mentioning again, the Vinyl Archivist had a live stream last night, and they were doing 1984. He was doing 1984, the year of 1984, and One of the albums that was on that was Prince and the Revolution, I think Purple Rain. And when I got this, the vinyl, only the vinyl was inside here as well. So, and I think that's the first time I'd ever heard that entire album, Purple Rain. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, this came out in 77 and never got any traction, unfortunately. The first 50,000 copies or so had a major issue in the mastering, and so they would skip, like, regardless of your equipment. So they were pulled back and subsequently released again. But by that time, any traction they'd gained, I think, was lost. But yeah, it's Mick Marconi on lead guitar, Dennis Dunaway bass, Bob Dolan on the keyboards and synths, and of course Neil Smith on drums. But yeah, you know, funny enough, I think Michael Bruce does pull it off fairly well. And what I mean by pull it off, it sounds a lot like an Alice Cooper album. And not coincidentally, he did a lot of the vocals with the Alice Cooper band as well, like you know, kind of support vocals to Vincent, Mr. Alice Cooper. But yeah, good. It's a good album. But it was the only one they did. You know, I think even when they went on tour, they did maybe four shows, somewhere in there. That's what I'd read anyway. I certainly was far too young at the time, and certainly don't have that much knowledge of the band itself. It's just a vinyl I really want to pick up, so I have it now in my collection, and it is a debut. So next up, we're going to go 1977 again, and another gentleman who was well schooled. In fact, his previous band was massive at the time when he left, and that, of course, I'm speaking of Genesis and their previous lead vocalist, Peter Gabriel. This is his debut. It's often referred to as Peter Gabriel 1, and also The Car, the Car album. But yeah, this is probably best known for Salisbury Hill. Also, another album I did on my previous episode was produced by Bob Ezrin. This also was produced by Bob Ezrin. No surprise there. He produced a lot of albums. But yeah, really strong album, really strong debut. I mean, hard act to follow when you're the lead vocalist of Genesis. And I don't know how well it did at the time, but I really like this album. Really love the inner sleeve too. That kind of is a microcosm into the pop culture at the time, because it would have been shortly after, I think, The Exorcist was viewed in theaters by the masses, and, you know, just his eyes glowing as such, just kind of I don't know if that's a nod to that or what it is, but anyway, it's just a really good album. But anything Peter Gabriel does, in my opinion, is going to be a good album, as was anything done by Genesis. There's those schools of thoughts, you know, do you prefer the Gabriel Genesis or the Collins Genesis? Well, of course, Collins was with the band previously as a backup vocalist and drummer. But then took over vocal duties afterwards. I don't know. I mean, I think I prefer the Phil Collins era, only because that's what I was first introduced to, and then I visited the catalog later with Peter Gabriel. And I've always loved Phil Collins and his drums. I mean, as I've alluded to before, that's kind of my, you know, anything with drums in it is going to be something that I'm drawn to. Next up, we're going to go 1980, and I don't know a lot about this one. I'll do a video about why I have this album in my possession at a later date, but it does happen to be a debut, and it's Crocodiles by Echo and the Bunnymen. It came out in 1980. Pretty popular album at the time, and I think even after I heard it, it does sound familiar. Like, I do recall, I would have only been 12 at the time, I guess, but I definitely recall hearing this music mainstream. There's the band. This is a fairly new thing for me the last little while, so I don't know. I might have to go with one of those clip-on I see some of the guys using, or something, because I find I'm knocking into this one quite frequently. Or if I move away too much, just doesn't pick up as well as I would like, at least with a clip on, I think it would move with me as I move. But yeah, great album, great debut album. Ian McCullough on lead vocals, Will Sargent lead guitar, Les Patterson on bass, and on drums, Pete DeFreitas. And unfortunately, he passed away, I think, in a motorcycle accident in, I'm going to say it was '89, I believe. But in fact, they had released a single prior to the release of the album, and Pete did not play on that. They used a drum machine on the single. He only joined the band when they went in to record the actual album. But yeah, really good debut, that one. 1980. Next up, 1982. Is that where we are? I believe this is 82. Yeah, 1982. Of course, I should know that. Another super group. This is a debut by Asia. And yeah, of course, in the heat of the moment. I mean, that was, I think this is the #1 rock album of in the US for 1982, 4 times platinum. And of course, I mentioned supergroup with John Wetton, who also passed away in 2017 on vocals and bass. And I mentioned King Crimson, you know, was fairly prominent in this episode because he had previously been with King Crimson. Also a Uriah Heep, and was it Wishbone Ash, or maybe he only played with him live. I don't quote me, maybe correct me in the comments if I'm mistaken. I know there was several acts he was with. And then of course you got Jeff Downes and Steve Howe, who both were previously in the band Yes, and rounding out the lineup of Carl Palmer on drums. Amazing. The whole album is good. If you've not heard it, strongly recommend having a listen. I can't imagine anybody has not heard that at this juncture, at least of a certain generation, maybe the younger ones. This is the Canadian Press. Side 1, Heat of the Moment, Only Time Will Tell, Soul Survivor, One Step Closer, Time Again, Wildest Dreams, Without You, Cutting It Fine, and Here Comes the Feeling. Yeah, 1982. Really good stuff. There's the dudes there. Yeah, this was all over the airwaves. I remember this quite clearly. At the time I would have been 14, and yeah, it was a massive song. Didn't have any of the Much Music, well, here in Canada, Much Music. It's basically the same type of video service that they had in the States, MTV. I didn't watch a lot of that. Oh God, I don't even think we had cable until later than that. So where I grew up was a pretty small village on the East Coast. But it was massive. It was all over the radio and in the schools. You know, you go to dances and whatnot. Heat of the moment. Next up, 1984, and talking about a period of time where something happens in the music world that kind of is just kind of, and I think it's pretty rare nowadays. But when I'm talking 40 years ago, it was still happening, at least to a greater degree. Maybe there are those who will beg to differ, but I don't think there's a lot of anything that's new anymore, like truly new. But I would suggest this gentleman was, at least according to my friends and I, was revolutionary. And of course I'm talking about, yeah, Inge Malmsteen. This is his debut, Rising Force. Of course, you know, he'd been with Steeler and Alcatraz prior to this. But yeah, and I think, in fact, again, correct me if I'm wrong in comments, those who maybe are more, you know, I'm not a huge Malmsteen fan. I've got a couple of his albums. I love his stuff, but certainly not an encyclopedia of his history. But this was intended to be, I think, just an instrumental, and then they decided relatively late into the recording sessions to bring in a vocalist of Jeff Scott Sato. Is it Sato or Soto? I think it's Soto. Sorry, it is Soto. Of course it is. And of course, Jan Johansson on keyboards. Drums. No, keyboards. Jeez, it was Barrymore Barlow on drums. Wow. I might have to edit this. I hate editing. But yeah, you had Malmsteen doing almost everything at some juncture. Acoustic guitars, bass guitar, bass pedals, I mean all the electrics. Barrymore Barlow on drums. And he also played, Barrymore Barlow also played with Jethro Tull. And I was just talking about Jethro Tull when I was over at Patrick, the Vinyl Archivist, his channel. Because Maiden did a cover, I believe it was on the Peace of Mind. They released a single, and the B-side was Cross-Eyed Mary. And that was the first time I'd heard that song, actually. And then I heard it later on by Jethro Tull. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, Barrymore Barlow, he played on drums here, and he was part of Jethro Tull. Just the memories that are associated with that. I just remember it was not that long after Randy Rhoads had passed away, and to many of my friends and I, he was kind of the king, along with, you know, Tony Iommi, Jimi Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen, Richie Blackmore, Jimmy Page, etc., etc. There was so many, but when he came on the scene, it's basically, this is considered to be the birth of neoclassical metal. I mean, it just yeah. And in 2009, I think it was ranked #1 all time by Guitar World, that album. And I don't know if that's in a certain genre, but that shred, I mean, you got to be more than just able to shred to be a fantastic guitar player, but obviously to shred the way he does, I mean, it's and to take the whole classical thing and anyway, you have to hear it to know what I'm talking about. And if you've not heard it, then I'm kind of wasting my breath, because don't depend on me. Check it out. And as per usual, I'll leave a playlist on down below that you can check out to have a sample of the artists that I cover here. At least the ones that I can find. I can't always find the ones that I want to post, but I will post something. Anyway, yeah, that was 1984, and just a groundbreaking album. Also, a little tidbit on that, he played, as I mentioned, he played with Steeler, and another band that a lot of my friends and I would come to like would be Keel. And of course, Ronnie Keel was the vocalist there. But yeah, little piece of trivia that I'm sure many of you, at least of a certain era, will already know that. Next up, fantastic debut by a fantastic artist. This guy is so talented. And this one is from 2012, and of course it's Jack White, is Blunderbuss. And this is another one that I'll probably feature in a video I'm going to do coming up, just because of the circumstances in which I purchased it. I'm going to do a whole series about that. But yeah, of course, of the White Stripes. But if you've not heard the other stuff he's done with the Rock on Tours, Broken Boy Soldier, can't remember, the Consolers of the Lonely, and they did a new one recently that I have not got. I can't remember the title of that. And of course, Dead Weathers, just fantastic stuff. Love it all. But yeah, this one, when this came out in 2012, he had just went on his own. If you know, I mean, he was the primary member of the White Stripes anyway. It could be argued, but it was his band. Come on, let's be real. Side one, you got Missing Pieces, 16 Saltines, which was released as a single. Freedom of 21 was also a single. Love Interruption, Blunderbuss, Hypocritical Kiss, Weep Themselves to Sleep. I'm Shaken, which is an old cover. That's an old cover by Little Willie Johns. Trash. I gotta put these on. Trash Tongue Talker, Hip, Eponymous, Poor Boy, I Guess I Should Go to Sleep, On and On and On, Take Me With You When You Go. Yeah, just great album. Like I say, he's just such a talented artist. Everything he does seems to, he's kind of like a, when it comes to blues, rock, you know, that kind of, he's kind of the Midas man. Just everything he does is so good. In my opinion, of course. He has his retractors, no doubt. People who aren't fans. This is the lyric sheet. And it's awesome. I mean, it sounds great. I'm not of the audiophile army or whatever. I mean, the community, audiophile community. I mean, I love all the information I've come across in the vinyl community, and there's so many knowledgeable folks there. But essentially, with the system that I have, and eventually I will do kind of a video of what I do have, it's nothing fancy. So the sound quality to me, it sounds pretty damn amazing with the system that I have. So that's really all that matters. I do of course have this on CD. I stream it. I have backed it up on my hard drive. So, but just that as I've mentioned many times before, just the experience of listening to the vinyl, checking out the cover art. There's the one thing that vinyl has that no other format has, and I'm sure you've heard it many times. Just that experience of being, the packaging, the outer sleeve, the inner sleeve if it has one, the actual vinyl, the ritual of putting it on the turntable and sitting there listening to it. Just can't be beat, in my opinion. Last up, I'm going to do one that again will be featured on a future video just because of the circumstances in which I purchased it, and it's a one-off. These guys were called Minor Alps. Get there. Essentially, this is a collaboration of Juliana Hatfield of the Juliana Hatfield 3 and the Lemonheads, and Blake Babies. My God, what else? I think that's all I can think of. Matthew Cause of Not a Surf. He was part of that 90s band. They did this in 2013, and essentially they played all the instruments and did all the vocals with the exception of the drums. The drums were done by Parker Kindred, who actually had done, I think, the second album that never got released by Jeff Buckley due to his untimely death, of course, but really good. Pop, rock, folky kind of sound. Yeah, this was in, did I say already? 2013 this came out. And I've recommended it to a few people in the vinyl community that hadn't seemed to have heard of it, that I think would probably be right up their alley. And I mentioned it to Rachel over at Rachel's Ghost, and to anybody else there that would listen. It was just another one of the live streams. Just think it's a great album. And really inexpensive. That's going to be one of the parts of the video that I will be doing upcoming regarding some of these vinyl. But that's it. That's all I've got. That took a really long time to do. I don't mean the video itself, but to get around to doing it. As they say, life is what happens when you're making other plans, and it's been a busy summer. It's been great. I've had some family visiting for a couple of months, and always busy with the grandkids, who are, love them to death. They are a huge part of my life. I hope it always remains that way, or at least as long as I'm here. And but it's done, finally. Over, finished, gone, done, out. See ya. That's it. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, to Twanger's Turntable. If you liked it, give a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed, please do so. It really helps. There's been so much support out there in the vinyl community. I really do appreciate each and every one of you who have subscribed. It's awesome. And it is just a hobby. I'm not trying to reach the 1 million subscribers, but it's nice to have goals. Maybe 50. Whatever. Just, appreciate your support. If you've just dropped by my channel to check it out, thanks for doing so. Just hit the subscribe button. It takes a second. You never have to come back again if you don't want, or just a thumbs up. And I will see you again. Like I say, I have some other videos in mind coming up soon. I've got a little bit of free time on my horizon here, so I'll try and get a couple of videos uploaded. Thanks again, everyone. Take care. I'll see you next time here at Twanger's Turntable. Better put them up here because my icons usually get in the way down there. Cheers, everyone. Bye.